are students from UP Diliman taking environmental science under Dr. Cayetano. We were assigned to research about the current issues in the existing situation of our environment. In line with this, our group chose biomass burning as a threat to the global environment as our topic. Our professor recommended you as one of our main sources in our research paper. We believe that you will be able to help us, not only us, but also our listeners, to understand more about this issue. Thank you again for your time. For the sake of everyone po, what is the meaning of biomass?
Biomass, so any organic matter. So organic meaning it comes from living things.
How is it used?
How is it used? Well, since it's any organic matter, so there are many uses of it.
What about biomass burning? What is the main purpose of it?
Biomass burning, well, it's a so usually after, let's say, farmers harvest their crops, so the easiest and cheapest way to, let's say, discard the waste from the harvest is by burning, okay, all this biomass waste or something. The things that you cannot, let's say, use as food, you cannot sell. Okay, so the easiest and cheapest way is by simply burning it. So that's when you consider, let's say, agricultural burning, which is a bit systematic. However, there are also some biomass burning wherein sometimes related to deforestation like this. There's also some natural causes as well, like these forest fires. So sometimes if it's really dry, and then the plants, they're really dry, and then let's say it gets hit by lightning, so it will burn naturally.
So, does it have any economic benefits?
So yeah, so just like what I said, so since it's the cheapest and easiest way to, let's say, get rid of agricultural waste products, yeah, for the farmers, of course, it will be economical for them. So another, like, probably vision is to use the biomass or the energy coming from the biomass burning as probably an alternative energy source.
How about environmentally? Does it have any benefits?
So environmentally, of course, it will release some greenhouse gases as well as pollutants. So it will release some, because since most organic matter is made up of carbon, then it will probably release some carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and many others. You can also release some pollutants like soot. They also have what they call the black carbon, depending on what type of biomass you're burning. And some particulates can also be emitted from biomass burning. So environmentally, of course, it will add to the pollution in the atmosphere, and yeah, probably greenhouse gases as well. But it depends on the scale of the biomass burning. So if it's just like backyard, then probably it will be negligible. If it's like backyard biomass burning. But if it's, let's say, a large-scale farm or large-scale plantation, yeah, it will be a problem.
I mean, what happens to the soil during or after biomass burning?
Well, so I don't have first-hand experience for this, but so from what I heard, let's say, from farmers, it makes the soil more nutrient-rich. So probably.
Do you think global warming or climate change is the worst case scenario if we continue biomass burning?
Well, you have to look at it, or first you cannot probably jump to conclusions. So you have to probably have to do some studies first to really know if it will affect the global climate, and probably how much it will affect the global climate.
If that's the case, what's the worst scenario?
Well, the worst scenario, well, again, it depends on the scale and persistence of biomass burning. The worst case will be probably in terms of short term first. Maybe short term worst case scenario will be, of course, more pollution. And then in the long term worst case scenario, since it's emitting greenhouse gases, it might increase the global temperatures because it's releasing greenhouse gases.
Is biomass really a renewable source of energy?
Of course, it will depend how much, or at least the biomass burning. It will depend also on your supply. Okay, let's say the biomass. Okay? So I think it's not really renewable because it will, I think after some years, it will run out.
What is the concentration of biomass burning? Where is the concentration of biomass burning in the Philippines?
Where? You mean, where is it more? Okay. Well, in the Philippines, it's actually difficult to pinpoint where the concentrations are because since we are archipelago, right? So usually when something burns, it just gets, so we're surrounded by ocean. So it's either some of the carbon dioxide might go to the ocean or some might get transported because, we're surrounded by water, and this causes some transport to other places, or sometimes it will also be absorbed by the ocean. So it's really difficult to pinpoint. And since
does the government really permits the biomass burning or the
well, there is a law. I don't know if you know the Clean Air Act.
Yes.
So there's a Clean Air Act. But as usual, like in the Philippines, our biggest problem. So we have all these nice laws, but implementation is always an issue. So sometimes some of these laws are not implemented very well.
Is municipal solid waste considered biomass?
Municipal solid waste. Well, I think when you talk about solid waste, it's like a mixture of some that can be decomposed, and like it can also contain plastics which cannot decompose. And plastics, of course, you cannot consider as biomass. So probably only the organic portions of municipal solid waste can be considered as biomass. Like, for example, leaf litter and what else? Yeah, all this stuff.
What is the difference between the effects of biomass burning and municipal solid waste burning? Or is there any?
So, of course, if it's only biomass, then it will just release carbon mostly. But if it's municipal solid waste, which may be composed of, let's say, some plastics and other non-organic material, then of course it will release something else, not just carbon, and which might be harmful to the health and environment. So I think biomass burning is safer than municipal waste burning. But again, the biomass burning, again, would depend on the scale and persistence.
What if a biomass burning is prohibited? What are the alternatives for the affected industries?
If biomass burning is prohibited, the other alternative is to instead of burning, then you produce compost from it. However, it may take longer, but it's like I think it's a more natural way of converting biomass to something more useful.
Please tell us more about your research about biomass burning.
Okay, so one of the researches I'm doing right now is basically looking at carbon dioxide emissions from that sensor. So yeah, so one of the research first is pinpointing where and how much the emissions or how much, let's say, the measurements here are influenced by emissions from the surroundings. And then, so first, after you pinpoint where and how much, then the next step would be what's the source? Is it from a power plant? Is it from agricultural burning? Is it from vehicle traffic? Is it some natural source? Okay, and all that. So that's one of the research that I'm doing right now.
Finally, what is your insight about biomass burning?
What do you mean insight on if it's bad or good?
Yes. What is your stand? Or
Well, it's sometimes difficult because it's like actually I try to just look at it through science. I don't want to put any politics. What I do, I measure, try to determine the source, and then maybe present it to people, to government agencies, policymakers, and it's up to them how they will interpret it. I will just give them, you have a large, let's say there's a large concentration in this area, and it's up to you how you will interpret. I don't want to really, I don't know, put some color because it's science, and science has to be objective. So you just give the facts and all that. But personally, I think biomass burning. So it's actually this is a delicate issue as well because if you tell a farmer to stop biomass burning, you have to tell him about what are the alternatives and if is this alternative like is it comparable to biomass? Let's say biomass burning versus composting. So composting takes longer time, but biomass burning is short, but it has some harmful effects. They have to weigh the pros and cons as well. So it's quite a delicate issue. It's also some social issue because usually these farmers are poor and then they can't afford to wait, let's say, for the compost to decompose completely before they replant again. Yeah, so actually most of environmental issues are very delicate balance between science and society.
What are your like you said, you present to the policymakers and or the government about your research. What are your recommendations to them?
Well, first is to implement what the existing laws. I mean, really implement it without any bias. Implement it strictly, and they should also be like good examples for. So let's say if you have a law and then the government official is the first one who breaks it. So what's gonna happen? So they should be the ones to set a good example and then implement the laws really strictly without any bias and be strict about it in the implementation.
Finally, sir, is it really a threat to the global environment?
It's again like what I said, it depends on the scale. Compared to other countries like Indonesia or Thailand, I think Philippines is still relatively, in terms of biomass burning, is still relatively small scale.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Sir.